Whatever happens in the future, it doesn't really matter at this point. I'm going out there to make a statement on New Year's Eve and win this title again. That's something that's important, racking up these titles, because that's where you leave the legacy.
Lance the Party Palmer!
It's crazy. Right now I'm on a 10-fight win streak and looking for my 11th straight win in this finals fight. I didn't really think about it until after the playoffs, but it's really cool to get to this point and be this active each year, even though it's a lot on the body, but it's fun for me because I feel like each fight is a different challenge and I'm improving in different ways in each fight. And to be able to do that on a couple months at a time instead of waiting 6 or 7 months between fights, it's really cool. And I don't really think of records or win streaks or anything like that. I just go out each fight. Each fight is a new fight, and I'm 0-0 every time I go into each fight, and that's kind of how I look at it. It gives me more motivation and puts more pressure on me instead of, well, you were undefeated last season, you're undefeated this season. I don't really look at it that way. I look at each fight as its own season, basically. It's its own fight camp, it's its own opponent for the most part, it's its own everything. My decision to move from Las Vegas for training out here to Toms River was years in the making, really. But in season 1, Timur Valiev, who's my teammate now, he was training out here already during that first season, and he was in the featherweight division, so there was really no way for me to come out here without stepping on anyone's toes. This year was a whole different story for season 2 because he was no longer going to compete in PFL, so it gave me the opening to be able to come out here and train. But I've always wanted to come out and train with Mark Henry and Ricardo Almeida and guys like Frankie Edgar and Eddie Alvarez. It's always been something I wanted to do, it just wasn't available to me until now.
It's like he's been here forever, like the way he gels with the guys, his attitude, his mindset, how smart he is, and just the life that he leads. Lance fits in perfect.
I've had great coaches and great partners my entire career, but I haven't had anybody really break things down for me. They're people who really understand the sport enough to break it down to each tiny little detail. It just brings out a different fighter. I mean, you can be in the game for a long, long time, but when somebody really renews that fire in you and the ability that you have, and he explains it, Mark explains it as you're taking a Ferrari and you're just taking the Ferrari apart and putting better stuff on the Ferrari. The Ferrari's already gonna run great, but when you soup it up and do all these things to it, it's gonna be a supercar, and that's kind of how he explains it. It's awesome to have the East Coast style because I trained on the West Coast for so long. There's a huge difference in styles. I'm still learning in this game, and that's what's awesome is I've learned in every fight, and I've gotten better in the last 2 years faster than I've gotten better in the last 6 previous years.
Lance is one of the best in the world, and the things that I've seen him do, blows you away.
It was great to get the TKO. It was my first TKO. Usually it's submissions. He wasn't really giving me the submission, but he was giving up the TKO, so I just kept landing punches, kept throwing my punches, and there was still so much time left that I knew the ref was gonna have to jump in eventually. But I dropped Alex Gilpin in the first fight, in the very first round, and kind of attacked like a wrestler would have attacked, and I took his back instead of trying to just stay in there like a striker and try to get the finish that way. He's a tough opponent. Like, he's a great opponent. He brings the fight, the entire fight. He can take damage well, he can give damage well. He's an unorthodox style of fighter. He has great submission attempts. He just makes it a fight, and that's kind of similar to what I do. I'm looking for the finish, and I'm looking to go out and make it look easier than it is. And that's something with Alex Gilpin that I tried to do in the last fight, and I felt like we had a great fight the second fight. And the first fight was a great fight. Like, the pressure, we both brought pressure to each other, we both can grapple. And the second fight, we both showed some skills on our feet. So I think a third fight's only gonna be more of the same and some more tricks from each of us, I believe. He's definitely durable. He knows the grappling just enough. He knows the wrestling just enough. And he has his own tricky submissions himself. Like, we saw him submit Andre Harrison. He submitted Freddie Asuncao, who's You know, they're kind of known for their jiu-jitsu, so I mean, he's dangerous in that aspect. And that's something with Alex that you have to be aware of. You have to be aware that if he's anywhere around your neck, you know that he's going for a submission, you know he's going for a choke, and you have to fight the choke. You have to give a position. We've brought some new things to the table, but it's things we've been working on since we fought him in May. So it's not necessarily a 10-week thing, it's an all-year thing. In all of our fights against other guys this season, we've both shown our wrestling to be superior to the other guys. I think that's the main thing that makes a difference is with a high level of wrestling, you can cause scrambles and cause people to make mistakes. I usually stay in the moment pretty well during each fight week. I think it'll be somewhat similar. The main difference this time is probably just gonna be that I've been there before. Last year was kind of crazy because it was right after Christmas when we reported there, and the whole week was just kind of a blur. The hustle and bustle's going on. New York City is insane, like people everywhere traveling from all over the world. It goes by like that. And then you're at fight night, and then next thing you know, you're leaving the press conference and the ball drops 2 minutes later, and then you're like, all right, well, then you go back to the hotel and you go to the after party and you're hanging out and you're enjoying your time with friends and family and, you know, everybody else that's there. And then you go to bed, you wake up and you're on a flight home and you're $1 million richer. And it's just like, that's the craziest thing ever. Second title is always more challenging than the first. This year, going off of my first title, and I was a second seed there. I'm the #1 seed here. I don't look at it as a tougher year. I look at it as I've done better this year than I did last year as far as my performances go. But the second one always means more, in my opinion, for sure.